Now we're gonna shoot another video. 2 videos back to back. Here we go. How's it going? Welcome to this part of the internet. Today I want to talk about a game of Warhammer 40k that I played a while back now with an experimental Awakened Dynasty Necrons list against a friend who brought Black Templars. I mean, technically they're like his own homebrew faction, but he ran them as Templars. Also, I really love an orange color scheme, which you honestly don't see too often these days. To be honest, showing off his army was the main reason I wanted to do this video. The mission, the map, etc. So the mission that we were playing was Purge the Foe on Crucible of Battle with terrain layout number 1. The classic layout. This really played into the Templar's strengths because they're a really killy faction, so getting primary points for killing enemy units is kind of a big advantage.
God wills it!
They're also kind of a really tough matchup for Awakened Dynasty Necrons who like to stand on objectives and refuse to die. Spoiler alert, this made it very easy for my buddies chainsword sickos to run up very quickly and do awful things to them. So lists. As I alluded to for this game, I wanted to try an experiment, so I ran 2 warrior bricks, one without characters at all, but with Xeris nearby so that they had a bit more durability with a monolith backing them up. The second brick had Oricon the Diviner and an Overlord on the other side of the map. As you'll see later, my deployment of my Scorpic destroyers was totally backwards, and they ended up doing too little too late. As for the Space Marines, so my buddy's homebrew faction, he calls the Crescent Guard. He was running them as Wrathful Procession Black Templars. The list was mainly based around the Emperor's Champion, 2 Marshals, some Salt Intercessors, some Sword Bros, some Crusaders, and Blade Guard. Basically a pressure list with a lot of chainswords. So we set up and I pitted what would turn out to be kind of like a weird proto version of the list that I would later take to Adepticon against Black Templars, which, well, deployment and turn 1. As I may have alluded to earlier, I made the mistake of putting my Scorpex in Deep Strike instead of positioning them close to the front line so that they could get a charge off, as well as making a couple other key deployment mistakes. I made another mistake by splitting my force. For an army like Awakened Dynasty Necrons who want to stay together so that overlapping buffs and synergies can kind of just overpower the enemy, yeah, that was a big time boo-boo on my part. As you can see, I made a lot of mistakes in deployment that would boo-boo me later. Part of the reason I did things this way is because I wanted to see how Oricon on one side of the battle handled a flank on his own, whereas Xeris and a standard brick of skeletons on the other side handled that flank, with a monolith anchoring the middle. My opponent staged his army very well, and it made me slightly overconfident about my ability to take and hold objectives, which I paid for later. Turn 2. So I moved my Ophidian destroyers, which their models are kind of like the old Wraith models. They look like snake dudes with knife hands. I mainly use them because of their ability to uppy-downy every turn. They're also really good at killing chaff. Like, they have strength 4, AP 2 damage to weapons. They can give themselves dev wounds. And they have a 10-inch move, so they can chase pretty much anything down. And I felt like my backfield was screened out well enough, so I moved the Ophidians up, charged them, killed his scouts that were sitting on an objective, and then his Marines killed my Ophidians, which forced me to suddenly realize that I now had no way to score a lot of secondary objectives. Turns out trading secondary scores only works if you have more than the other team. So I managed to move the Oricon brick onto an objective. I killed a few Marines, but I couldn't finish them or his Repulsor Executioner off. Xeris and the Monolith proved to be a good intimidation factor against my opponent, but that also just kind of gave him more time to position for a devastating turn 3. Turn the 3rd. There were so many f***ing chainswords. Xeris' Armor of Contempt aura kind of helped the warriors on his side of the map stay alive, but their native saves are only 4+, so even with that and reanimations, it unfortunately was not enough. This was the point that I realized splitting my force the way I had was a mistake. The Sword Bros and Crusaders tore through the Oricon brick. The Scorpex showed up way too late to do anything, and mostly just killed a few dudes and then took the center objective. I kind of wish I'd positioned them behind or even in front of Oricon a turn earlier, which could have made a difference, I guess. Being able to heroically intervene at the very least would have maybe made a difference. Xeris ended up in an isolated fight against a bunch of Templars and eventually died twice. The last of the leaderless skeletons got finished off, and the Monolith took some solid hits and then blew up. Turn 4. So almost nothing in my army was left except for my backfield screeners, and he had lost basically nothing. I had a couple of Locust Heavy Destroyers that were move blocking, and they just got punched to death. I didn't have enough left in my army to claim any board presence outside of my deployment zone, so we pretty much decided to call it there. By turn 5, I was essentially tabled, and the Templars took an overwhelming and well-deserved win, scoring a perfect 100 points, while the Necrons slunk back into their crypts to post salty rants about it online. Takeaways. So anyway, this was a fun game against a fun opponent. I know I keep saying that the list I was running was kind of experimental, but I don't want to diminish how well my opponent played. He really knew his army and he knew exactly what he was doing. Templars are also, like I said before, kind of a rough matchup for my army. If you ever run into somebody who is playing Necrons and they are running the warrior brick, the way that you kill them is lots and lots of small damage but high volume attacks.
Kill it with bug bites!
Because at that point, even if you have Oricon the Diviner giving them all a 4-up invulnerable save, even if they have a Resurrection Orb, a Ghost Arc, a Canoptic Reanimator, at a certain point, like, you have to contend with the fact if your opponent kills everything in one go, leaving only the characters, or maybe not even leaving the characters alive, then you can't reanimate. And even if you're making 4-up saves, if you have to make 60 of them, and your unit only has 20 wounds in it, you're gonna have to roll real well to keep them alive. I think for us, the majority of the actual, like, time we spent playing the game was literally just turn 2 and 3. There was so much going on. Turn 3 was also just a complete bloodbath. So many things died. It was awesome. So as I mentioned before, this is kind of similar to the list I ended up taking to Adepticon. This was basically like almost kind of a prototype, which consisted of 2 bricks with characters this time. But instead of Xeris trying to do the heavy lifting by providing buffs, I'm starting to use him as a screening unit because it turns out he's really good at stopping things in their tracks because he's really hard to kill, and even if you kill him, for a CP, you could just bring him back to life afterwards. I also learned this trick that I can't believe I haven't been doing this entire time, where instead of moving the warrior bricks as like literal solid bricks, you string them out because there's 20 of them, and it turns out when you only have to maintain 2 inches of space to maintain coherency, you can hide your characters next to a reanimator basically in your deployment zone and then just menace whatever objective you want. And it turns out that also helps keep the monolith alive because if you have to break through 2 conga lines of very durable Necron warriors, it's going to take a little while. I also ended up giving up things like flayed ones in favor of just bringing more scarabs. Scarabs are maybe the most underrated thing in the entire Necron Codex right now. They're very, very good at move blocking. They're pretty useful for doing secondaries, and against a pressure list like Black Templars, where you really just need to slow them down by feeding them bullshit so that your actual like good shit can get into position to shoot before they have a chance to charge. Yeah, scarabs are kind of ideal for that. So anyway, yeah, thank you for checking out the second battle report on this channel. If you haven't already, check out my Adepticon coverage, check out some of my other videos. I'm going to be making hobby videos. Oh, and so I had this idea that I would have people essentially call in by like leaving comments in my videos asking me to cover like specific weird rules interactions and synergies and things like that. So let me know if you have any ideas like that you would like me to kind of do a deep dive into and then like report back. Or if you just want me to make more dumb bullshit, that's fine too. I love making dumb bullshit. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hit the stuff, do the subscribes, and yeah, check me out. Oh god, I'm so tired. Like and subscribe. Thanks, bye.